Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Micah, and today we are learning how to set up a remote dev environment using Docker and VS Code and this perfect extension that Microsoft created that blends these two technologies perfectly together. And I have some old Python code laying around that I want to be able to spin up an environment for. That way I can test and debug the code easily, and this is perfect for that use case. And I'm really excited about showing this to you guys, so let's get straight into it. All right, so the first step is to connect to the EC2 instance that we created in the previous video. So let's do that now. We're going to create a shell script that will install Docker and do some other stuff for us. And we'll talk about what the script actually does here in a second. But let's go ahead and do that with touch install docker.sh. And then we are going to open it using nano. And then we're going to copy and paste the content of this script here, located in my GitHub repo. So let's do that now. And so basically what this is doing is updating the installed packages, install the most recent Docker Community Edition package, start the Docker service, start the service Docker at boot with using system control and enable. And then we're going to add the EC2 user to the Docker group so that we can execute Docker commands without using sudo every time, because that gets annoying. So let's go ahead and Control S, save, and then Control X, exit. All right, so let's go ahead and run that script and install Docker. So we're going to do sudo bash install Docker, and then we want to exit so that our permissions that we changed will be added to our profile whenever we log in next. And as you can see, I've already installed Docker, so there's nothing to do. So let's go ahead and install VS Code if you have not already. Luckily I have. Let's just open it. So there are two extensions that we want to install. One is remote SSH and the other is DevContainers. The VS Code extension DevContainers allows you to use a Docker container as a fully featured development environment for your code base. And you can search for these in the search bar here. And both of them are by Microsoft, so they should be safe to install. So go ahead and do that. As you can see, I've already installed them for the video. The next step is to configure our config file for the remote SSH extension. It'll make it easier to remote into these servers, and you'll see exactly what I mean here in a second. So let's go ahead and open our .ssh folder that we edited in the last video, and we're going over here to config. And if this file is not present, you can just create it. Make sure that your file extensions are not hidden. That way you can just remove or create a text document like so, and then name it config. I'll just do config1 since I already have a config file. And then you can remove the .text to create your config file. And you can edit it with Notepad or whatever text editor of your choosing. So let's talk about this one. So it's basically just your host name, user, identity file, which is your public or your private key. So this is just a tab between the left side of the file and the start of this entry. So let's go ahead and connect to mod dev01, which is the contain or the EC2 instance that we created again previously. All right, so now for the fun part, creating our DevContainer.json file. So I'm on the remote host. I already created a Python folder inside of the EC2 home user directory. And let's go ahead and open that now. And we are going to create a .devcontainer folder. And this is necessary for the extension to be able to locate all of the config files for the extension. So go ahead and create that. Then new file inside of it, devcontainer.json. And again, we'll be using my GitHub repo as a reference. We're going to copy and paste the code here just to easily get started with this. So we have a name, Python 3, name this anything you want. We have an image from Microsoft. This is DevContainers Python 3.12 bullseye. And we have a post create command. So let's talk about the image for a second. So we can either define a pre-built image, or you can create a Docker file, which looks something like this. And as you can see, you're defining all of the package installation and all of the commands that need to be ran, whereas the image is pre-built and ready to go, and it's way easier to start with. So next is the post create command, and this basically specifies actions to be taken after all of the configuration or initial configuration of either the Docker file or the image has been completed. So here we're running a post create.sh script, and we're going to replace this with some Python code here in a second. I'll just go ahead and rename this main.py. And I was basically using that shell script as a workaround because there's a limitation where you can only use one post create command, and I had multiple things that I wanted to run after the creation of the container. So it's just a shell script, kind of like what we did earlier with the Docker install. So yeah, that's that. And for the extensions, this customizations piece down here, you can install extensions in the Docker container instance of VS Code that resides inside of the container. So everything is located in the file system of the container. Nothing is installed locally, which is pretty awesome. All right, so now as promised, we have some Python code that I need to locate real quick. All right, so we're in my downloads folder, and we have 2 Python files that we can upload and use for our demo. And we'll see exactly what this does in a second, but you probably already know because you saw the art. And let's go ahead and create our remote environment. So we're going to hit open folder and container, and you have to do the parent folder of the DevContainer. So we're going to open Python, home user, EC2 user, Python, hit OK. And this should start creating our remote dev environment. And as you see, it shouldn't take too long either. So I'll skip forward ahead, but it shouldn't be too long. We specified the post create command, which I forgot to change to Python 3. So this should be Python 3 main.py, main.py being the file that I just uploaded. So let's try this again one more time. And the great thing about this is all of the commands that have been ran are cached. So it shouldn't take too long to rebuild this container now. And hopefully it should open or run the Python code as intended. So let's see if that works. And you see how fast that was. All right, it's awesome. So do you want to play a game of blackjack? Yes. And you can see the beautiful art that I created and this Python code that I wrote a million years ago. It's 14. Let's hit yes. Hit. And I went over. Dealer wins. But the code works. Everything is working as intended. And like I said, that was super easy. Took maybe 10 minutes, if that. So yeah. And that's it. We've reached the end of the video. I hope that you found this content valuable, and I'll be pushing myself to drop new content each and every week of 2024. So stay tuned for that. And again, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Stay blessed.